Hello everyone and welcome to I guess it's not an episode, but yeah, this is the 2021 return to the fellow traveller save that I did last year, at the beginning of lockdown and kind of tapering out towards the end. Trying to get back on it now there's another lockdown, but we'll see how we get on. Yeah, and I think listening to some of the videos from last year, I feel a lot more optimistic now than I did last year, so hopefully that'll translate into more excited and positive content. Yeah, so this is just the video I did before where I summarised the different clubs involved. There's a few things I'm going to change for this round and a few things I might try and insert to make it a bit more interesting, but basically it's the same kind of core concept, playing as left-wing clubs across the world. Some of them are a bit tenuous, a lot of them have more historical links. And then when I win the league I move on to another club because just too often I've got bored of playing as big clubs or just dominating a league as a club. For example, Argentinos Juniors is the Argentinian club I'm going to summarise in a second. What I would normally do is play as them, but at first it'll be difficult. Eventually after 2 or 3 seasons you win the league and then you just dominate the league, eventually win the Continental Cup and then maybe move on to win the World Championship or something, but it just gets very stale very quickly for me. Maybe not for other people, but definitely for me. So I've got this new thing where I migrate between clubs, and I've summarised it before, but I'm just going to go through all the clubs again here quickly. Hopefully less than 21 minutes, the last video was. So yeah, first we have Argentinos Juniors, who are a mid-table club. Technically looks like mid-table in this league. In the Argentinian Premiership, which is the top tier of Argentinian football, I believe, yes. And they're not so left-wing now, but originally they were called Los Martires de Chicago, and they were named after the anarchists who were accused of a bombing in Chicago. And I can't remember if they were killed or if they were just imprisoned, but certainly they faced a lot of persecution for a bombing they were accused of being part of. And I think there was almost no evidence. Somebody set up a bomb during a protest in Chicago, but there's almost no evidence it was the individuals that these martyrs, this name the martyrs refers to. It's called the Haymarket Affair, happened in 1886 in Chicago, obviously. I'd suggest googling it. It's quite an important, interesting event that was very big in left-wing circles in that time period. And also Diego Maradona, who has passed away recently and is a famous kind of, I think he's left-wing. He certainly has said a lot of left-wing things and supported a lot of left-wing leaders, but who knows the kind of lifestyle he lived. How fair that is, I don't know. I'm not an expert. And the stadium was named after him as a result. Yeah, there's Argentinian club done. A bit more historical than I'd like. And Austria, I've got another tenuous one. Some of the first few are a bit tenuous because I was kind of looking for a few more extra clubs that didn't just want to do 5 or 6. And Austrian football basically is quite apolitical. But St. Polten are one of the few kind of political clubs, and they kind of lean left. It's more of a reputational thing in the country than it is an actual. They don't have a hardcore left-wing fan base or anything. They just kind of got a reputation in Austria for being like that. I think, I don't know how St. Polten is, but oh yeah, and also they are looking likely to finish 8th, which is kind of mid to lower table, so they're probably like not far for relegation battles. There's a similar thing in Switzerland I explain later on where it's apolitical, but I've got a vaguely left-wing club. Onto Bulgaria, where football and politics are quite overlapped, unfortunately, in a bad way. Actually on the second tier of Bulgarian football. So in Bulgaria, as many people might know, the far right have infiltrated football a great deal, and Lokomotiv Sofia, who I would play as here if I get them, are one of the few clubs that have campaigned against this and received a lot of derision from the far right as a result. Yeah, a lot of homophobic slurs and attacks, saying that they're too soft and things like this, and that all the horrible right-wing conspiracy theories you get are kind of used against them. But they're a strong team in the second tier, plan to finish second, so hopefully be in the first tier quite quickly. And Slavia Sofia are a similar left-wing club, but they're not as interesting a challenge, I think, so I picked Lokomotiv. There's a few right-wing clubs in Bulgaria as well, which make it look quite spicy. Which brings us on to Chile, the next country, and Palestina, one of my favourite clubs in this, or at least they've got the most interesting histories. Palestina was founded by Palestinian migrants to Chile. Where do you know? It's just the year it was founded, but there it is. Oh no, it's not there. But anyway, yeah, I think it was founded quite a while ago by Palestinian migrants to Chile. Doesn't have the date though. But in recent politics as well, in 2015, they were actually fined by the Chilean FA for shaping all of the number ones on their kit. You know, like the goalkeeper wears number 1 as the state of Palestine. A map of the state of Palestine before the creation of Israel, which is very controversial. They're a mid-table Chilean side, and also they have the colours of Palestine. I think green, white, and red are the colours of Palestine. Another one of my favourite clubs is Bohemians in the Czech Republic. They are not like super left wing, but they're kind of a hipster liberal club in East Prague. Czech Republic again is famous for being quite right wing, and this is a big thing in not the country's very right wing, but the football though is quite right wing. In Czech Republic, it's not as bad as you would think in that kind of area. Certainly not as bad as Poland, which it borders. And there's kind of a local rumour and reputation around Bohemians. They're famous for being this kind of green liberal club where fans are known for smoking weed in the stands, and this combined with the kangaroo on the badge, which is there to commemorate the the introduction of a kangaroo to the Prague Zoo in 1905, adds to this kind of idea. They're kind of like a fun lefty club, but not super political, but kind of tend to be supported by the kind of Bohemians, I guess, of Prague. And they're kind of, because they're pretty 11th, they're probably one of the weaker teams in the league, not that far of relegation spots. Let's get on to Red Star in France. I think they are in the 3rd tier. Yes, but they're one of the best teams in the 3rd tier, so they should be in the 2nd tier quite quickly. Historically, they've always had a connection with left-wing political networks, both in France but also particularly in Paris, where they're based. Although their name didn't originally relate to politics, this is part of the reason that they've been so attractive to left-wing supporters. And during World War II, this connection was strengthened even more by the execution of their former player and French resistance fighter Reno de la Negra in 1944. He was killed by the Nazis. He was also a member of the Minuchian communist group, and one of his last notes to his brother before his death said, "Hello and goodbye to Red Star." And as a result, the club became a part of Parisian and French communist law. And also in his youth, Francois Hollande, who was the Socialist Party Prime Minister of France about a decade ago, I think, maybe longer. He was a fan in his youth, so that's Red Star. They sound quite interesting and exciting. And onto Hamburg St. Pauli, who are a famous left-wing club, probably the most famous left-wing club in the world. Basically, they're a big part of the German ultra movement and a centre of anti-fascist and anti-racist activism in Germany. There's loads of stories online about things they've done in the last few years. If you want to read more, I'd just Google it. But they're also just probably the most reputable and powerful of all the clubs in this list, so that'd be fun. Because you can probably take on Europe a bit, and Bayern and clubs like that in the upper league is quite interesting. Similar to the French one as well, when I get into the top league, it'll be really difficult you're not trying to top like Sparta Prague. You're trying to top Paris Saint-Germain, Bayern. It's going to be a big challenge. And then to Greece next, and Atromitos, who are a left-wing club in Greece. I can't remember which part of Greece, unfortunately. It's a little bit of a stretch on this one, but they have one of the largest anti-fascist ultra groups in Greece, and I'd never played a game in Greece before, so I added this club in. I hear that AEK Athens have a similar thing, but being predicted 3rd, they're too strong a club, so I just left them out. There's a lot of clubs that I removed. The clubs like Celtic, for example, maybe Liverpool, they have a famous left-wing heritage, but are just too easy to really do justice with what would be the worth of playing a Celtic up in the league. Barely, without making any effort almost. So, Israel next. The Israeli league is one of my favourite leagues, but also one of my least favourite leagues as well at the same time. The football in Israel is incredibly intersected with politics. So Hapoel, I think it means worker, or a similar word. So as a result, the Hapoel teams were all unions, or had their origins as union football teams originally. And I'm not sure what Maccabi means, but the Maccabi teams tend to be liberals, and Beitar Jerusalem is a very right-wing supported club, but also clearly its upper administration are quite right-wing as well. They wanted to add Trump to their name at one point, partly because Trump had supported the recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, which obviously upset a lot of Palestinians. And it's an addition as well. Bnei Saknin are an Arab club, or the biggest Arab club in Israel, but they're an Arab club in the top tier, but they're more of a relegation up and down team. And also I think Hapoel Tel Aviv have the best left-wing credentials in Israel. Which brings us on to, I think Italy's next. Yeah, and the one thing I would say about Israel quickly, is that it's a very challenging league, but one that I enjoy greatly, because you have to have a first team that is majority Israeli, and in Israel they don't have the Bosman rule, which is where a player can leave for free at the end of their contract. So generally it's a nightmare to sign Israeli players cheaply, but you also have to fill your team with Israeli players. So I recommend it to anyone who's looking for a big challenge. Which brings us on to Livorno in Italy. Some people will have heard of Livorno, similar to Red Star and Hamburg. Yes, they are in Serie A, thank God. Livorno are a strong team in Serie A. They should win the league. I should have said about Hapoel Tel Aviv. I'm pretty sure Hapoel Tel Aviv are a mid to upper table Israeli team. It takes a few years to win the league there, but I would say on previous football managers I struggled to do it completely. But on this one I've played a quick game as Hapoel, and it takes a few years for me to win the league, so we'll see. Livorno. They have their roots in the Italian Communist Party, and they've had famous communist players like Cristiano Lucarelli, who was openly a communist. Fans hold communist banners, and the club attack right-wing footballers and politicians frequently. They've got a really long history of left-wing politics that continues today, and they have big connections with a lot of the other left-wing clubs on this list. And they are looking likely to be promoted from Serie A, although I think there's only one promotion spot actually. Could be wrong about that. But basically, they're going to be up in Serie B pretty quickly if I manage them. And then we push on to Serie A, which will bring in some really interesting rivalries, because there's a lot of right-wing clubs in Serie A today, especially Lazio and Juventus, but I'm sure there's some other ones that are less famous that I'm not really aware of. Yeah, but it's similar to France and Germany. The winning of that final league would be much more difficult. Bring me to Northern Ireland, which is a very different tact, because it's a much weaker league, but it's all about their modern history with Cliftonville. They're currently, or in the last decades, have been involved in loads of progressive political campaigns, supporting marriage equality and welcoming migrants. And they're the only major Catholic team in Northern Ireland, and are hated by anti-LGBTQ activists and Protestant conservatives like the Democratic Unionist Party. People who don't know about Northern Irish politics, the Democratic Unionist Party are a very ultra-conservative, anti-abortion, Protestant conservative party who are pro-union, maintaining a union with Britain, and basically they're the dominant force in Northern Irish politics right now. Although I think their strength is slipping recently as well. So, and I think Cliftonville are mid-table, so not that difficult. And also they're quite a weak team, so I'll try to do them first, but eventually we might get to them. Onto Spain, where we've got more than one club in Spain. Spanish history is replete with left-wing politics, and this is part of the football as well. Athletic Bilbao at the top, so it's already highlighted. Both Sociedad and Bilbao are both based in the country. Oh, they're not called Sociedad, they're called Real San Sebastian now. Real San Sebastian and Athletic Bilbao, both Basque clubs, both have a long history of left-wing fan bases, interesting history, and they're both involved in the... I just realised I said the word history twice in that sentence. They're both involved in the Basque left-wing nationalist movement, but I picked Bilbao out of the two because Bilbao has this extra interesting challenge where you're only allowed to sign Basque players. You're not allowed to sign any non-Basque players. They're all rich as well though, so you probably can buy all the Basque players. And I think Sociedad is probably more left wing and more famously left wing, but this extra challenge I think makes it worth doing Bilbao instead, which is particularly challenging for me as I'm a bit of a wheeler dealer. I like to buy players, sell them for cheap. Buy players cheap, sell them for a lot of money and make profit, and then use that to drive the club forward, basically. And then in the second tier of Spanish football, we have Rayo Vallecano, or just Vallecano on Football Manager. They're kind of a playoff team, push for automatic promotion with a bit of work. And yeah, they've been hoovering up the left-wing fans in Madrid. As with most cities, there's a decent left-wing network or movement, and especially because Atletico and Real, both the big clubs of Madrid, are traditionally quite conservative. I might be wrong about that Atletico. I think historically Atletico were quite left-wing and had their roots in the unions, but these days they're quite conservative, maybe even right-wing. I'm not 100% sure on that one. But Real is Spanish for royal, and they tend to be very conservative. Not like quite fascist, but I'm sure they have some fascist supporters, but they're certainly a conservative club. And I forgot to mention about Bilbao. So Bilbao are kind of they're pushing for European spots, I think, but they're not like, it will take a bit of work to beat Barcelona and Real Madrid, and Vallecano obviously a lot of work to beat those types of clubs. 2 clubs left. In Switzerland we have Winterthur, which I think are in the second tier. Yeah, so FC Winterthur, similar to the Austrian club St. Pölten. It's a bit of a stretch. The politics is quite apolitical, but they're one of the most left-wing clubs there. And I just wanted to play in Switzerland and have a club because I've never played there before, and I thought it'd be an extra interesting challenge. The last club is Adana Demirspor, who it appears are in the second tier of Turkish football. Yeah, there you are, Adana DS. I think they have origins in the airline industry, like building planes or something. Anyway, they have a left-wing fan base, and they have connections to clubs like Livorno and other left-wing clubs. And they're probably not the most left-wing club in Turkey, although they're certainly one of the most. The interesting thing about Turkey is a lot of the big clubs have connections. I can't remember which ones now. Maybe I should have done more research before. But basically, some of the top 3 or 4 teams in Turkey have got quite a left-wing fan bases, but it's just far too easy. So Adana provides a nice mixture between left and challenging in the game. And the big change between this and the last game is that I've removed Velez Mostar, who have got a very interesting left-wing history in Bosnia that charts like World War II and the dissolution of Yugoslavia and current Yugoslavian/Balkan history. It's all very interesting, but the mod for Bosnia didn't work perfectly. And for a similar reason, I removed the Lebanese club, Safa, because the mod was just a mess. Again, Lebanese football is super political. It's, again, very interesting. Maybe not quite as interesting as Velez, but I'd recommend looking into them, but the mod doesn't work very well. I don't want to play with it. So yeah, there's all the different clubs. I'm going to release a video in the next week with a spin the wheel so I work out which club I'm going to play as. And if you want to play the story, if you want to follow the story, please subscribe and like this video so more people see it. Excellent, thank you very much. Have a nice day/evening or whatever time of day it is where you are.